Good evening, good morning, whatever time frame you're joining us, we're happy to have you here. This is the UC San Diego Parent and Family webinar, and thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Dr. Ebony Williams. I'm the Director of Virtual Experience and Peer Engagement Initiatives, and I will be your moderator tonight. Our host tonight is Vice Chancellor Allison Satterlin of Student Affairs. If you're interested in hearing this webinar in Spanish, please see the chat for further instructions. We have disabled chat and we'll be using the Q&A function in the Zoom for you to ask questions. We have a large group of talented individuals ready to answer your questions. And I believe our plans for the evening may answer the questions you pre-submitted. We look forward to answering as many questions as we can during this time. Our agenda today is to provide you with a welcome from our Vice Chancellor, as well as an update around academics. A lot of you asked about courses and classes. We're also going to give you some updates on student and well-being of your loved ones and housing. All huge questions in our pre-submitted space. We'll also be providing an international update and parent and family resources for you to continue to engage and be a part of our community. We'll end our time with answering questions that you pre-submitted that may not get covered in the above agenda. So with that, I'd like to remind you to ask your questions and answers in the Q&A function of Zoom. We're so excited to have you here, and thanks for being a part of our community. With that, I'd like to introduce our Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Allison Satterlin, to provide a welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. Greetings to all of you, and thank you for giving us some of your time. For those of you that I have not had the opportunity to meet either in person or remotely, I'm Allison Satterlin, and I have the honor of serving as your student's Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And it's my job to guide UC San Diego towards its goal of being a student-centered community alongside my colleagues. UC San Diego is a special place for many reasons, but it is your children and loved ones, our students, that inspire many of us to come to work each day and do our best. During the course of the pandemic, our students have amazed me with their care for one another, their resiliency, and their determination. I know that this has been incredibly difficult, a challenging year, and not one that any of us expected. Some of you know that my oldest son is a UC sophomore. As his mom, I can say with certainty that I understand how challenging this year has been and how proud I am of him and how proud I am of your children. We know that they could not and cannot do this without your care and love. So on behalf of all of us at UC San Diego, first, let me say thank you for all of the support you have provided and continue to provide for your students' success and well-being. Keeping their safety in mind, we would like to ask your help and ask you to encourage your students to stay with us for spring break. We have curated more than 80 activities for students in a series of tracks or leadership, academic enrichment, service, health and well-being, disability awareness, adventure, art, and research. These experiences are remote, hybrid, and in person, on campus, of course, masked and outdoors in small groups. Please know that our students' parents and families are our most important partner on their UC San Diego journey. And we want to thank you and make sure that you are well informed. If we aren't able to answer all of your questions during this webinar, which will be recorded and shared out, please feel free to email vcsa@ucsd.edu, and I will follow up with you personally. Finally, I would like to thank my dear colleagues for giving us their time and expertise for this webinar. Again, thank you for being here, and let's get started.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Satterlin. I'm hoping that you can hear us better. I saw the question about us not being heard. I'll try to project and we'll work on that in the background. In the meantime, we're going to continue down our agenda. Next up is AVC Carlos Jensen over educational innovation to give you some updates around the academic environment here at UC San Diego. Carlos?
Hi, Dr. Williams. Thank you for inviting me and this opportunity to share an update with everyone
Gracias
about
por invitarme a mí a este
spring, summer, and fall.
para darles un reporte académico de lo que va a pasar en el otoño, en la primavera, el verano y el otoño.
For this spring term,
Para el término de la primavera, yo quiero darles un reporte de la situación de aquí en San Diego, de la evolución de la pandemia y cómo lo estamos conteniendo. Mientras llegamos al final de este término, tenemos una situación mejor. Lo que esperamos en la primavera y el verano es que vamos a estar en el nivel rojo. Vamos a estar ofreciendo clases dentro de las aulas a un 25% de capacidad. Vamos a estar en las mismas condiciones que tuvimos en el otoño, gracias a las 25% de capacidad. Vamos a tener los mismos protocolos, la máscara, distanciamiento social y saneamiento. También esperamos entre un 10 y un 15% de las clases híbridas en personas y remotas. Vamos a continuar con las clases afuera, un uso extensivo de las clases al aire libre. Las clases que vamos a tener en personas van a estar enfocadas en clases como clases para hacer prácticas que los estudiantes necesitan estar presentes. Las clases van a estar más, la mayoría de las clases van a ser remotamente durante este verano. Todavía van a estar remotas durante el verano.
To engage in research.
Lo que vamos a tener, vamos a tratar de traer a los estudiantes en el verano, son estudiantes que tengan la oportunidad de hacer prácticas acá en la universidad. Esas oportunidades van a volver a la universidad en el verano. Mientras miramos al otoño, son 6 meses hasta allá, es un poco difícil de predecir. Estamos esperando tener, como la mayoría de las otras universidades de California, la mayoría de las clases en persona. Más o menos un 80% de las clases en persona. Esto es posible por todos los esfuerzos que se han estado haciendo acá en San Diego con la administración de las vacunas. Nosotros vamos a estar usando las clases al aire libre, más o menos hasta el invierno del 2022. Sí, vamos a continuar con las clases afuera, no va a cambiar y vamos a seguir usando las máscaras, el distanciamiento social y todos los requisitos de higiene hasta que todo el mundo tenga la vacuna aplicada. Esperamos que este otoño sea un periodo de transición, un periodo para acomodar a todos los estudiantes que regresen a la universidad. Después del otoño, también esperamos que los estudiantes regresen mucho más a la universidad para retomar la instrucción normal.
resumption of on-campus activities.
También en el otoño va a haber una fase gradual de eventos en personas en la universidad. Vamos a tratar de hacer eso.
Opportunity to go back to
Y
that celebration,
vamos a tener
that building of community that we were
oportunidades de celebrar, estar juntos y construir la comunidad en la universidad.
Just reminding you that if and when you have an opportunity to get vaccinated, and UCSD is working very hard to roll out,
Cuando,
please take that opportunity.
si también queremos recordarles que si tienen la oportunidad de ser vaccinado, tomar la oportunidad
I
de ser
know a lot of
vaccinado.
you had questions about what schooling and returning to learn would look like and how we're doing. So happy to have that information provided to you. Next up, we have Dr. Stacy St. Michelle, who's the Director of Medical
Tenemos ahora a la doctora Stacy San Miguel, que nos va a dar un reporte acerca del bienestar del estudiante. Hola. Estoy aquí para decirles cómo la Universidad de San Diego ha estado manteniendo a los estudiantes seguros. Hubo un alto en los casos en enero y estamos viendo un deceso.
So that currently in our county, we have a case rate of 4%, which is wonderful.
Actualmente en nuestro condado tenemos una rata, un promedio de casos de 4%, como lo pueden ver en los gráficos. Estamos haciendo un buen trabajo acá en la universidad de mantener a los estudiantes seguros y tenemos de que los estudiantes puedan participar en actividades de una manera segura. Estamos administrando las pruebas de COVID. Acá en la universidad son obligatorias para todos los estudiantes que vivan o aprendan acá en la universidad. Las pruebas son administradas por un proveedor en el Price Center, pero tiene que tener una cita previa. La prueba puede ser autoadministrada a través de máquinas expendedoras, incluye instrucciones, hisopos y vial de prueba. También hay acceso a la prueba con la tarjeta de identificación. No hay costo para los estudiantes para esta prueba. Los resultados de la prueba COVID usualmente regresa en aproximadamente 24 horas.
Next slide. So the students and the staff at UCSD who are
Los
working on
estudiantes y el personal de la universidad haciendo un trabajo excepcional con las pruebas de COVID. Pueden verlos en el gráfico que está acá, que tanto estudiantes como empleados han estado tomando los tests en muchas cantidades. Los estudiantes han estado haciendo un trabajo excepcional. La tasa de positividad del estudiante y los empleados del campus es 0.1%.
Next slide. One of the other things that our campus is doing
Otra de las
is
cosas que la universidad está haciendo es monitorear las aguas residuales. Monitoreando las aguas que vienen de diferentes lugares en la universidad. El COVID-19 puede ser detectado de una manera pronta en las aguas residuales. Los rojos son los edificios que han estado teniendo casos positivos. Aquí pueden ver en este gráfico en gris son fuentes potenciales de señal de aguas residuales. En gris son negras, en gris son no y en rojo son sí. Hemos abierto un sitio para vacunación en REMAC y estamos vacunando potencialmente a 5,000 personas por día, pero depende de la disponibilidad de la vacuna. Está abierto los 7 días de la semana de 7 a la mañana, 7 de la noche. El acceso de los estudiantes a la vacuna está determinada por la elegibilidad del estado y del condado como empleo. La elegibilidad de salud comienza el 15 de marzo con los grupos de mayor riesgo. Dotación de personal y voluntario, posibles roles para el personal del campus, corredor, observador. Hay un proceso de aplicación para solicitar ser un voluntario, pero a este momento no necesitamos más voluntarios en este momento. Esto es algo que vamos a estar continuando desde ahora hasta que los estudiantes estén vacunados.
Thank you so much, Stacy.
You're welcome.
This is great. Or I should say, Dr. San Miguel. I think you answered a lot of the questions. The Q&A went crazy while you were going. We'll answer some of those questions during the Q&A session later on. A lot of questions about when will my student be eligible? How will they be eligible? And so we'll share as much as we can. And she answered some of that question live around we're following the rules and guidelines of our county. So thank you for that. Next up is our Director of Housing Services, Janice Severson.
Ahora con ustedes, Jana Severson, directora de Servicios Residencia.
What does that look like? Jana?
Thanks, Evan. I appreciate the opportunity to share
Gracias
some.
por la oportunidad de estar aquí para platicar sobre lo que es residencia.
So, spring break,
Programación para las vacaciones de primavera 2021. Las vacaciones están solo a 2 semanas. Tenemos unos programas especiales para estas vacaciones. Nuestros socios de salud están animando a los estudiantes que permanezcan en el campus durante las vacaciones de primavera. El campus ha otorgado una excepción para albergar de manera segura y organizar un programa de enriquecimiento durante las vacaciones primeras. Pronto se compartirá un resumen final del programa disponible en áreas que incluyen académica, servicios, aventuras, arte, investigación y salud y bienestar, entre otros. En el programa consistirá de actividades presenciales tanto remotas como con conformidad con grupos de 3 en áreas designadas. Los restaurantes de Housing Dining Hospital contarán con elementos de menú temáticos de destinos vacacionales de primavera, tacos de pescado de baja, pahmi, ceviche, platos y yakitori.
Destination themed menu items like Baja fish tacos, banh mi, ceviche, yakitori plates. We are going to be doing our best to help
Vamos a estar haciendo nuestro mejor disponibilidad de poder aportar estas diferentes experiencias a los estudiantes, ya que no pueden viajar durante esta temporada. Los restaurantes que van a estar y mercados que van a estar abiertos son 64 Degrees, Café Ventanas, Calle en Vista, Marketplace y como mercados Rogers and 7th Markets. Y también en el centro de la universidad va a haber diferentes restaurantes y oportunidades para que los estudiantes puedan comer.
All right, so spring quarter 2021, following right after spring break. So as we have done throughout the pandemic, I just want to
Todas las
restate
decisiones que se toman teniendo en cuenta la salud de seguridad de los estudiantes, los empleados y las comunidades. Esas es
of our employees and our local communities. So we will be offering rooms to additional students on
sí,
spring.
vamos a estar ofreciendo
Wait list open.
habitaciones a más estudiantes. Nuestra lista de espera se ha abierto el 24 de febrero. Debido a la disponibilidad limitada, se dará prioridad a estudiantes con inseguridad residencial por necesidad, inestabilidad y calidad de vivienda. Estudiantes que tomen casa en el campus, estudiantes becarios que participen en programas que exigen vivir en el campus, y también se utilizará una lotería para el resto que solicitantes con prioridad para los estudiantes de primer y segundo año, incluyendo los estudiantes que se han transferido. Todos los estudiantes asignados de esta lista de espera estarán en habitaciones individuales en apartamentos completamente vacíos.
Any new students that move on campus again will be assigned single occupancy rooms in currently vacant apartments.
De nuevo, los estudiantes van a estar en una recámara solos, pero en un apartamento con otros estudiantes. Gracias.
It's been a pleasure to have you join us and share that information. And I feel like you answered a lot of the questions that come from our parents and family beforehand. Next up is Grace Fuller representing our ISPO.
Próxima en nuestra agenda es a Grace Fuller, manager, gerente de experiencias y compromisos de estudiantes internacionales, que proporcionará un reporte de estudiantes internacionales. Hola desde la Oficina de Estudiantes y Programas Internacionales.
Next slide, please. Here are the latest updates regarding.
Aquí están los reportes últimos de la política de migración y visa afectando a los estudiantes. Continúan las demoras en el procesamiento y la cita de visas en las embajadas y consulados de los Estados Unidos. Continúan las restricciones de viaje para viajeros de ciertos países y está pendiente la orientación de la Agencia Federal para cursos presenciales para el periodo de invierno del 2021, del año 2021. Los estudiantes que no puedan llegar antes del 29 de marzo, el primer día del trimestre de primavera, deben comunicarse con el asesor de su universidad o departamento con respecto a la inscripción y el registro de clases. Además, los estudiantes deben comunicarse con IPSCO para que sus formularios 1 y 20 y DS 2019 pueden actualizarse en consecuencia. Aún están pendientes las orientaciones de las agentes federales con respecto a las clases en persona. Están otros recordatorios para los estudiantes que pueden viajar a los Estados Unidos en el periodo de la primavera. Los requisitos son pasaporte válido, sello de visa F1 válido en el pasaporte y 20 válida con firma de viaje, así como también comprender y conocer los requisitos de salud. Actualmente, todos los pasajeros aéreos deben presentar una prueba COVID negativa tomada dentro de los 3 días posteriores a las salidas. Adicionalmente, le recomendamos que visites el sitio iTravel de UCSD.edu. Les invitamos a que consulten la página de eventos del UCSD aquí en esta en la universidad para ver otros eventos que están pasando. Está una lista de los recursos web para estudiantes internacionales.
Thank you so much, Grace. Such great information for our parents and families who may be coming from international locations. That's such a great richness to our campus as a whole. Next up is Jody Wisely, the Executive Director of Parent and Family Programs. Jody?
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon to hear about spring, summer, and fall here at UC San Diego. I'm excited to announce that Parent and Family Programs has joined the unit that contains alumni engagement, annual giving, and career services here on campus. And what this means is that we'll have even more opportunities for parents and families to engage with UC San Diego and really be involved in the university experience alongside your students. I'd like to take a moment just to introduce the parent and family team who is here to support you throughout your journey. Myself as executive director, as well as Dale Gray, who is our director of development, and Dan Perez, who is our parent and family program coordinator. The three of us work together to ensure that there are many opportunities for parents and families to engage with the university. Two of the major programs that we have available are the Parents Council, which helps determine how the Parents Fund is going to be distributed across different students' success and support initiatives here at the university. And the council also helps drive parent and family programming. If you're interested in finding out more information about the Parents Council, you can reach out to Dale Gray directly, and he'll be happy to share that information with you. And we also have our Parent and Family Ambassador Program. This is an opportunity for you to volunteer at some of our events and engage with other parents and families, share your experience, and just share what's great about UC San Diego. We have several upcoming events through our Triton Family web series that will be taking place throughout the spring quarter. One of the items that I'd like to highlight is that we will be doing a webinar centered around commencement, and that is scheduled for May 12th. We are still waiting on some guidance from the county and the state regarding what commencement might look like, and we hope to have answers about that in the coming weeks. So if you join us on May 12th, we will have much more information to share with you about exactly what commencement might look like. You can find these upcoming events as well as many other resources at our website, which is parents.ucsd.edu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jody. As you can tell, we're definitely engaged and interested in having you be a part of our community, just like we're honored to have you here tonight. With that, that concludes the speaking portion or presentation portion of our webinar. The next piece is answering your questions. So feel free to submit them in the chat. I have a significant amount that you submitted when you registered for this webinar, and we will get started shortly. First, I'd like to share who will be on screen with us. So it'll be all of the presenters that you just heard. So if you had a question in particular about something you heard, we know the vaccine is a huge one. We'll also be joined by our AVCs, Patty Mahaffey and Maruth Figueroa of Student Retention and Success and Student Life. I said that backwards, but we'll figure that out. John Moore, our Dean of Undergraduate Education, are all the people who will join us on screen right now. We have some secret panelists as well who are listed here, which is our ABC, Cheryl Harrelson. So if you have a question for her, you can put it in a Q&A as well. Please turn on your cameras if you're joining me for Q&A. Oops. And I'm going to stop sharing because we're going to have fun talking to each other. All righty. Well, the first question I have is COVID related. It's around the vaccine. There's a lot of questions about, will my student be eligible if they're not on campus? Can they get it? Can you provide some more understanding around that,
Yes.
Dr. San Miguel?
Our plan is to vaccinate all the UCSD students, whether they live off campus or on campus. It all depends on their eligibility, which is determined by national and state guidelines. So we are following the national, state, and local guidelines in terms of who is eligible for the vaccine. And then we send out the invitations to those individuals that are eligible for the vaccine at that time. But as soon as, and it's also dependent on our vaccine supply. So when we get vaccine, we will send out those invitations and get students vaccinated as quickly as possible.
So Stacy, stay with me for a minute. Will there be a fee associated with vaccinating our students?
At this time, there's no charge to students or staff for the COVID vaccine. So we don't anticipate that there will be any fee associated with this at this time.
And then a big one that they're asking, and I'll give you a break and come back to you, is it going to be mandatory for all students to get vaccinated?
Oh, that's a good question. And I think that's a question that is still being discussed at much higher levels than myself. I think this discussion will be decided probably amongst all the campuses so that the campuses have the same requirements across the board. At this time, it's not required, it's not mandatory, but stay tuned.
Thank you so much. Vaccination, you can imagine, is hot on everyone's mind as
Yeah.
some people miss being in person. So we appreciate all the work you and your unit are doing. I'll give you a pause, but I'm coming back to you. I have some questions about fall. But talking about fall, Jana, you know, housing has been a hot topic. They want to know if I chose to go home after fall break, how do I apply my stipend? If I'm a sophomore or freshman this year and I'm going to be a second year next year, do I get some priorities? Do I get to stay in the room I'm in now?
Sí,
if I've
soy
been
un segundo.
on campus? So
La
let's
pregunta
start
para
with
Jana
whatever you'd like, and I'll
es,
frame anything that you missed. I know you have some answers prepared.
¿qué van a hacer si el estudiante es
There
de
were a
segundo
lot of
año?
variations on that theme submitted online in advance through the registration. So
Y la prioridad de
there's a
cómo
lot of
registrarte
nuances
para
to this based on your
agarrar
student's particular circumstances.
un
But let me start with this. Yeah, assuming that campus returns to double occupancy. And that's
Estamos asumiendo que vamos
our intent.
a regresar a ocupación doble en otoño. Nuestra intención es ofrecer alojamiento en el campus a los nuevos estudiantes de primer año que ingresan o han transferido y según la disponibilidad de espacio para los estudiantes de segundo año que continúan descargo de responsabilidad. Las cosas pueden cambiar según a las pautas de salud pública. Consulte a las preguntas frecuentes de HD. Muchas de estas cosas todavía las estamos cambiando al día según las pautas de salud pública y el liderazgo del Consejo de COVID que la universidad ha hecho.
I really appreciate you providing those answers because I think a lot of our questions require a crystal ball, which we don't have right now, but we're so empathetic to people wanting to plan and know where things were going to be in the future. And we'd love to give more concrete answers. But as you've seen, the pandemic and the situation of our health and environment can change and pivot all of our plans very quickly as we celebrate a year of being in this environment and trying to keep each other safe. Dean Moore, I'm coming to you. There's a great question around if my student didn't take in-person classes as a junior and they'll be a senior next year, what are going to be some of the opportunities for them to be in person and have those hands-on experiences? And I know ABC Jensen may want to join in, but I definitely wanted to start with our Dean of Undergraduate Education.
Right. Well, thank you very much for that question. So as you know, in the spring quarter, we are hoping to have about some level of in-person instruction. And we have, those will be primarily outside, although if we go to the red tier, it's possible we will be able to move inside. So it will be the courses that are currently scheduled to be in person will be available in the spring quarter. By the fall quarter, we're hoping to have mostly in-person courses. And so at that point, we're hoping that pretty much all of the courses that someone might need will be offered in person. And I'll let Carlos, ABC Jensen, add to that if there's anything else to.
Sure. The only thing that I would add to that is the different programs, different departments are looking very hard at ways to help students kind of catch up on the opportunities or the experiences that they missed during this remote time. And so I know that there are programs that are looking at kind of boot camps at the end of summer or in between the semester or the quarter breaks next year. So everyone's looking at opportunities here to help these students catch up and have the kind of rich and meaningful experiences that we all associate with the UCSD education.
Thank you both. I know how hard both of you are working to ensure our faculty are looking at it strategically, our departments are looking at it, and even our academic deans in the colleges and the departments are trying to make sure the students get the experience they need and they get the education they need to confer the degrees for their future. So I really appreciate that. Our AVCs, I have 2 questions, and I think you can tag team them. The first one is, can you provide some insight on spring break? I saw some questions in the chat about, is it
¿Nos
free?
pueden decir qué es lo que va a pasar durante las vacaciones de primavera? ¿Si son gratis o qué, o cuánto va a ser el costo?
I can start us off with regards
Maru Figueroa, yo puedo empezar.
para
Para las vacaciones de primavera van a haber varias oportunidades y actividades van a estar disponibles a todos los estudiantes. Muchas de las actividades sí ocupan que los estudiantes se registren. Tenemos un sitio web donde se pueden registrar los estudiantes. Seguimos agregando actividades y eventos a esa lista. Por favor, vayan al sitio web que vieron dentro de la presentación para poderse registrar. Estamos agregando actividades de diferentes de acción, de resúmenes para seguir sus profesiones y de educación.
Yeah, that's great. And good evening, everybody, or good morning. And
Buenas tardes o buenos días de Patty Mahaffey. Están preguntando sobre alojamiento fuera del campus. Tenemos un website para estudiantes que busquen residencia fuera del campus. El sitio web es offcampushousing.ucsd.edu. Y también tenemos un grupo en Facebook que les ayuda a encontrar residencias fuera del campus. Para los estudiantes que se fueron y van a estar regresando en el otoño, lo mejor que les podemos ofrecer es que se conecten con el campus, involucrándose en diferentes organizaciones y eventos en campus. Participen en las orientaciones de su colegio donde está el estudiante registrado. Todos los eventos y actividades están siendo en cuenta las contingencias que las pautas de salud pública nos han dicho, mantener nuestra distancia.
Vice Chancellor Satterlin, I'm coming to you about campus facilities being open in spring quarter. So gyms, libraries, all the fun stuff people like to do in person.
Sure, this is a question we get often from our students and our staff colleagues as well. So our current guidance is dictated by the data and positivity in the county, and we have a team that monitors this information each day. We know, of course, that currently the county of San Diego is not yet in the red tier. We're still in the purple tier. The red tier may allow for some flexibility in terms of access indoors, but it would be dependent on approval from the county and the state of California as well. We've had some initial conversations about how we might make some parts of the library accessible, particularly for spring quarter, depending on what our data looks like post-spring break as our students who live in campus-operated housing return. Of course, it would need to be physically distant spaces. We need to make sure that there was added maintenance and cleaning of the space, and that all users of the space were compliant with masking protocols, et cetera. We are certainly eager to make available other facility and spaces on campus available as well, but it's really dependent on county and state approval.
Thank you so much. It's so dependent on county approval. If they let us run, I think we would run as much as we could, but we also want to make sure everyone's safe and our community is moving as a unit. So we even have to restrain ourselves. So thank you for that question. I also want to share that we also have our recreation team has created outdoor gyms for students to play with. And so there's some opportunities, and we've also used our outdoor educational tents to allow for outdoor classes to be study spaces for students. So not replacing what has been there, but just reiterating. John, I'm coming to you, Dean of Undergraduate Education. Is the deadline to drop classes extended this year? And I'm sure our parents and loved ones may mean that on a quarterly basis. So any insight you can share with them around that would be helpful.
La pregunta para John es que si la fecha para salirse de la clase
Is the 9th week, that would be dropping with a W, and then the 4th week.
si el estudiante se quiere salir de sus clases con W es la novena semana del trimestre o cuarta semana sin la W. La fecha límite para la fecha límite para cambiar el clase de grado a pase no pase es la última semana del trimestre, la semana 10.
Dr. San Miguel, I promised you I was coming back. One of the questions that I have in coming back is, if my students have been off campus and they want to come on campus to live, what is the process in which for them to get vaccinated or testing? I think and then I have a second question. I won't load you the way I did before.
Okay, so basically, if they're returning to campus, we ask everyone to test within 24 hours of their return on campus, so day 1, and then also test on day 5 and day 10 after arrival on campus. And during that time, we're asking them to sequester. So basically that means that they will be wearing their mask in all public spaces or in common areas, as well as practicing social distancing and good hand hygiene. And so that's our current policy for right now. So there's no quarantine.
And then there was a question about someone wanting to transfer to UCSD Health if they didn't already have it, but they'd like to get under our system. So they'd like to have their healthcare be provided to their loved one, their student, through us, but they maybe opted out originally.
Yes, and so if they're a current student, they don't have any health insurance, they can contact our student health insurance department. The email is ship3@ucsd.edu. And they can work with one of our insurance coordinators to get enrolled into SHIP. And for the spring quarter, if they're on SHIP, it actually covers not only the spring quarter, but it covers through the summer. So it's actually a really good deal until the fall quarter begins.
Thank you so much. Jenna, I have another one for you.
Yep.
If my student is taking classes in the summer, can they stay on campus in the
Si el
summer?
estudiante está tomando clases durante el verano, ¿se puede quedar en los dormitorios? Sí, claro que sí. Nuestras aplicaciones para residencia en verano se abren el 12 de abril y para estudiantes que están tomando clases durante el verano. Durante los dormitorios, este verano va a ser un estudiante por recámara y dentro de los apartamentos.
in advance. We consolidate students that are living with us in the summertime to one.
Consolidamos los estudiantes que están viviendo durante el verano a una locación dentro de la universidad.
So we would consolidate back to one location. I believe this summer it will be at Six College.
Este verano van a vivir en el colegio de Six College.
And then if your student is staying and continuing on until
Y si estudiante se va a quedar con nosotros durante el verano y va a seguir en el otoño, va a haber un programa para poderlos asistir a
You answered my second question, which was
llegar
exactly that. So I appreciate that connection.
al otoño a
I
su
want to know
recámara.
where a child gets to stay in their room. I know you get very comfortable with that. But part of the growth space in college is learning how to navigate these new spaces is to allow for you to be flexible when you graduate, because that's going to be what's required in being successful. We have answered most, if not all, of your questions. And so I'm assuming that you feel confident and answered and aware so you can make the proper decisions for your loved ones on our campus. One of the big questions that has been asked of us on a constant basis is some of you may have graduating seniors. So it's a question about commencement. And I have a request to see if someone who is currently in our secret panel wants to turn on their camera. If not, one of our AVCs or vice chancellors may answer. But the question about graduation, Susie, are you willing to come on camera for us? I know you've been answering them privately. There she
Yes,
is.
I'm
No,
here. Sorry, my headphones are not working for me.
That's okay. We hear you loud and clear. And
Okay,
for
good.
everyone here, this is Associate Vice Chancellor Susie Sterner, and she's going to give you as much as she can, which may not be all you want, on our graduation ceremony plans for this year.
Yes, thank you, Ebony, and thank you everyone for joining us. We know how much everyone is looking for this information, and we desperately want to get all the details out. As you probably well know, this is a very evolving situation with this pandemic, and certainly in the state of California with county, et cetera, guidelines. So we are what I've learned today is that we are expecting some guidelines that will be coming from the state of California that will help us to be able to plan for commencement. And if any of that can be in person for this June, we anticipate getting those guidelines being able to help us make those final decisions. So certainly by the end of March, we will have all of the details I think that everyone is looking for. Irregardless, we will be providing a virtual commencement ceremony, whatever those guidelines may be, or whatever we may be allowed to do, if anything in person. There will be a virtual experience for all family and friends and graduates. The question will be is what and if we can offer anything in person. So know that there is a very large team that is working on this daily as we speak. And we anticipate, like I said, being able to answer all those questions and have a fully detailed plan out to all of our graduates and their families before the end of the month. Is that helpful, Ebony?
That is extremely helpful, and you relieve a lot of pressure off me because we got a lot of those questions and people want to know how they're going to celebrate. And I know we had to practice last year, and our graduating seniors had felt loved and appreciated. I just remind everyone, this generation is preparing for the future, and I'm hoping the skills that they've learned over this last year are going to be equipping them for the future we've never seen and won't look like what we've gone through. So I really encourage us to use positive affirmation words, even though their experience will be maybe very different than what we've seen over the past 100 years, right, of school. So I really appreciate that. Susie, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I am gonna get ready to close this out, but I'm gonna ask Dean Moore to come on and answer the question about priority registration for students. I've seen it asked in multiple ways. When will my first year get to go? Who gets to go first? Can
Una
you?
última pregunta para Dean Moore sobre cómo la prioridad de registración para los estudiantes. Hay muchas complicaciones para esto. Si algún estudiante tiene alguna pregunta sobre esto, por favor, contacten a su asesor de su colegio o al
is the best way.
pueden mandar a la pregunta al correo electrónico vac@ucsd.edu. vac.ucsd.edu. Ahí ellos los van a poder comunicar dependiendo del colegio al que su estudiante esté.
To answer those questions with several of our units. So please rely on that resource, have your student rely on that resource. It's an exceptional resource to be dependent on. I really thank you all for your time and talent. I thank you for the questions that you've asked. I thank you for being a part of our community, whether your student chose on their own or you're just supporting their choice to be with us. We're happy to have you be a part of our space. And we're happy to work together to keep your loved ones safer, keep ourselves safer, and I don't know, build a new future. So with that, I'm gonna share my screen one last time just to officially say thank you to all of our panelists, as they've been amazing. We'll be missing one name out of here. So Susie Cerner, thanks for popping on screen. ABC Harrelson, thanks for being in the secret panel, and all the other individuals who are here answering our questions and making this possible. It's been my pleasure to be with you tonight. I hope our Spanish-speaking parents have gotten what you've needed as well. We appreciate all of you as a part of our community. Have a great evening. Thank you.